Welcome to our podcast for today. I'm your host, Michael Habrish. I am one of the solution specialists here at Solid Experts. And that basically means I'm one of our software specialists. So I specifically teach the 3D Experience platform, how to use it, how to integrate it. I do some consulting work as well. But we're not here to talk about me. Today, we're actually here to talk about Solid Experience, SXP. What does it mean? How Solid Experts and Mechanica sort of fit together, what makes us different as a value-added reseller, and how we sort of mesh as a couple of sister companies, let's say. So we have some special guests with us here today. We're going to be talking about Solid Experts, Mechanica, but also SolidWorks and CATIA, and then we have a little bit about additive manufacturing as well. So that's me. Those are our guests. We also have with us another co-host.
Hello, I'm Gabriel Duclos. I am also a solutions specialist. I work specifically on the Mechanica side, so more with CATIA and 3D Experience. And I'll be introducing our guests here that we have today. So first of all, we have Alex Habrish, the president and CEO of the company. We have Tony Pompeo, the sales director at Mechanica, and we have James O'Farrell, the solutions manager for our additive manufacturing branch. So with that, we can lead into our first segment about the origins of SXP and a bit about its identity. So Alex, please tell us, how did you get the ball rolling with this company? What was the idea behind it?
Well, as Michael said, we kind of led with the Solid Experience is actually the legal name of the company. We just shortened it for SXP, which, three-letter acronyms, everybody likes that. Solid Experience, or SXP, is actually an umbrella corporation, and it is the parent company to the other companies that are underneath it. I use the umbrella corporation, so if those of you that are old enough to know Resident Evil, okay, we are not an evil corporation, okay? So in that context, Solid Experience was started. It seemed natural to me because we were selling the CATIA products and the 3D Experience product under Mechanica, and likewise, we were selling the SolidWorks product under a separate corporation called Solid Experts. So in that context, to me, it made a lot of sense to say, okay, Solid and 3D Experience, Solid Experience. So we called the company Solid Experience. And if I had my choice, I would just consolidate everything under one company. It'd be a lot easier for accounting and for other purposes as well. But there were certain people that thought it might be confusing to clients. That may change in the future. At this point, it's two separate corporations underneath the umbrella corporation SXP.
And what made you want to start with Mechanica in the first place? Why start with CATIA instead of something else?
My beginning was in the aerospace industry. I started working when I was out of school at Canadair, which later became Bombardier. Again, I'm old because back then we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have computers. We had mainframe computers. We didn't have desktop computers. We didn't have any of that stuff. So everything was running on a mainframe, and mainframe products were CATIA and CADM and those products. So my first touch of the computer-aided design was, in fact, the CATIA product. And we had specialized in providing training to customers. And that's how the business started in 1982, providing training to existing customers that had the software. And it was 3 years later that I was approached by IBM because the CATIA product was uniquely or exclusively sold by IBM worldwide. And they asked if I'd like to resell it to the smaller corporations because, large customers or small customers were afraid when IBM knocked on the door. No, sorry, I don't have the money for that. It's too expensive. But if they dealt with a smaller local company, and he says, let me show you the advantage of the product. And that's how the Mechanica brand got started.
How do the two brands differ in terms of market outreach in North America?
SolidWorks was acquired by the Dassault Corporation that also owned the brand of CATIA, and they were looking at a tool that would address a bigger market because the CATIA market was categorically viewed by large corporations. It was the aerospace manufacturers of the world, the automotive manufacturers of the world. They used that tool, they understood that tool, and they had the money to pay for that tool. The average company that made your coffee machine you have at home or the bicycle that you rode. They didn't have the money to spend, $50,000, $100,000 on a single seat. Because when we first started selling the product was 4 seats of CATIA was $1 million. Okay, to give you an idea. So when SolidWorks came out, it could do all of these things for $3,995. Holy crap. This is something, and in my case, this is something I want to sell because there's so many more customers that can afford a $4,000 solution as opposed to a $50,000 or $100,000 solution, and it opened the market for us. So for me, it was natural to say, wow, I want to cover more territory. I want to address more market. I've always been about design, engineering, making things, building things. It just opened the door to so many more opportunities.
And okay, let's talk a bit more about CATIA. Let's go a bit further here. I'll segue into Tony. I have a question for you, Tony. How did CATIA change throughout the years and the changes you've seen? I know you've been here for a long time, so how is it?
Not as long as
evolved?
Alex. I tell you, mainframe kind of.
How long exactly? Tell
Mainframe
us.
predates me, but yeah, it's 21 years since I've been with the company. About 25 years in the industry. So when I first started selling CATIA, it was CATIA V4 on a Unix workstation. As Alex says, it was, I think you were talking V3 with the mainframe, because when I started selling it, a seat of CATIA on V4 with a Unix workstation, 50 to 100 grand to sell a license of CATIA with hardware. So that's what we sold. It was very much a aerospace and automotive supply chain type of sale. So basically we had large OEMs in aerospace. You had Bombardier, for example, Boeing, Gulfstream. Automotive, you had Chrysler, Volkswagen, BMW, all of whom used CATIA V4. So they kind of mandated, if not like gave preferential treatment to those suppliers that basically had V4. So they gave them more business, but it was a burden on those companies because it was very expensive. The infrastructure alone, just to have a Unix workstation, you need an IT guy, you need system admin. Training was 3 weeks. You had a week of drafting, another week of solids, another week of surface modeling. So the cost to deploy was tough. But then you get to today, or actually back in 2000, I think it was, 98, 2000, V5 came out. So V5 kind of revolutionized how suppliers can now deal with those OEMs. It took a little time for those OEMs to, adopt V5, but once they did, it opened up the supply chain enormously. So you basically had a lot more suppliers because V5 was on a Windows platform. It was very scalable, easy to learn. You didn't need a Unix workstation. It ran on a PC. So the supply chain became enormous. It was a trade-off for us, though. We were selling Unix, which was expensive and high margins. CATIA V4 was expensive, high margins. Then you're going to selling software only with no computers, no workstation. So we had to get more customers. That was kind of the situation we were in at the time.
And the training's really been condensed down. You said 3 weeks for training back in V4 days.
Yeah,
Now
I remember we used to sell. Remember the
week.
passports? We used to sell a passport. It basically was 3 weeks of training. That was your onboarding to V4. So I think it was like a week of drafting and solids, another week of surface design, and a week of assembly design. So it's 3 weeks to onboard a brand new engineer, new to CATIA.
Right.
Today with V5, it's 1 week. You do the classes, Gabe.
Yeah.
The 1 week
being
fundamental
a
class.
Windows-based software now, it's a lot simpler to learn. For sure.
Exactly.
And just comparing that to SolidWorks is pretty funny because what our SolidWorks Essentials course now is 2 days. You take assembly modeling, that's another 2 days. Drawings, maybe 1 day. We've given 3D experience trainings now as well, and it's 2 days. So compared to the past, we're no longer doing 3 weeks long of training. It's very quick, and I think it fits. Our customers want to get up and running very quick as well.
And Tony, can you tell us a bit more about what clients are a good fit for Mechanica? Because we don't only offer V5. We also offer consulting services and other things.
Yeah, so one of our, I guess, claim to fame most recently, back to 2017, was the EV business, electric vehicle business. So we were one of the first companies to successfully deploy a major OEM in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco. And that was when 3D Experience came out in 2015, I think it was. 2017, we did our first deployment on premise for a major OEM It was a startup at the time called Ativa. Today is Lucid Motors, which many of you probably have heard of. So that was a huge success for us. And it led to a flood of other customers or other EV companies coming to us, asking us, hey, we heard what you guys did for Lucid Motors. Can you do the same for us? So, and it even got to a point where, I mean, software and services, obviously, we were selling to these companies, but Dassault direct customers actually came to us, which was phenomenal. We had Tesla, we had Google. You actually spent, 6 months at Google doing onboarding. If you
Yeah,
remember.
that's right. Maybe not 6 months, but 4 months.
Yeah.
Total. Yeah, with training and tech support,
Exactly.
things like that.
Exactly. So these customers bought their software directly from Dassault, Tesla, and Google, yet they chose our company because of our expertise and the stuff we'd done in the EV business to basically do everything from onboarding to training to some kind of deployment activities.
That's great.
So that sort of begs the question, what sets us apart as a value-added reseller in the market? Why choose us to work with? I'll let any of you answer that.
Well, I think one of the key reasons is we provide all of Dassault solutions. So we're not segmented. We're not like, oh, I'm sorry, you got to buy that from somebody else and that from somebody else. We started with the Mercedes, the Cadillac of the world by selling the CATIA products, and no different than Porsche owns Volkswagen. Well, so we now sell the Volkswagen of the industry as well, which is SolidWorks. So a customer can purchase the whole suite of products from us, and the nice thing about it is everything is now meeting in the clouds, as we say, because 3D Experience works with CATIA, 3D Experience works with SolidWorks, 3D Experience works with all of the underlying brands that Dassault has. So we're a full service partner in the sense that you name where you want to go, and we have the expertise and the skills to handle it.
But that begs the question, do we have any examples of successful projects that we worked on in the past? Do you have any names that you want to drop, or any projects that stood out to you?
Wow. Okay, that's a loaded question. I mean, you want me to drop names? I'll drop lots of names. Back in the 1990s, again, showing you how old I am, this would have been 1990, we signed an agreement with Dassault to become what was called a CATIA System Center, which gave us material on the future developments, beta code, gave us a lot of things ahead of the industry, so we knew where they were taking the product. In that context, our guys became the best guys out there for CATIA V5. And Dassault and IBM called on us to do benchmarks for customers to be able to stave off the competition, namely Pro Engineer was the big competition at that point. And the cool thing is our guys got to travel the planet. I sent my engineers to Hyundai in Korea, to Honda in Japan, to Toyota in Japan. They went from Honda to Ferrari in Italy. When IBM called and says, we need somebody that can benchmark against Pro Engineer for engine design at Ferrari. And we started by placing 2 guys at Ferrari. 2 guys became 4, became 8, 16, 30, over 30 engineers worked at Ferrari from 96 all the way through 2004, designing Formula One cars, race cars. And today we work with Racing Bull. We still work with Ferrari today, some 30 years later. I'm in discussions right now for another Formula One team, which will remain unnamed for now.
Yeah, personally, I've been dealing with a big company here. I'm based out of Montreal, by the way, so we have a big customer here, Pratt & Whitney Canada. Again, a major corporation, buy all their software direct from Dassault. That's just unfortunately the way it is in our channel. Large companies buy directly from Dassault. That's CP, by the way. Customer Process Experience, which is Dassault's lingo for the CATIA, Simoia, Delmia, and Innovia brands. So that channel has a direct model where Dassault sells to those large type corporations. Anyhow, Pratt & Whitney chooses us for all their CATIA support and training. So we're doing training on an ongoing basis for Pratt & Whitney Canada. We've been doing it since I started. I think it even predates me. Alex, I think It was probably one of his, yeah, 1984. So I wasn't even born then. Just kidding. But I was. But yeah, so Pratt& Whitney is a good example of another company, large scale company, where we have a time tested history and we've supported them over the years and done a great job. And I'll give my hats off to Gabe because he's one of the trainers. He does training on a fairly regular basis.
I think I've done about 10 of those
Yeah,
trainings
there
with
you
Pratt.
go. There you go. And I'm sure we've done over the last 30, 35 years, 1,000 classes. I mean, would you even hedge to? Yeah, yeah. So a lot of man days of training for sure.
At the beginning, I was doing them. So yeah,
There you go.
I stopped actually teaching people in about '96, and they said, "Let you guys take care of it."
All right, enough from you two. Let's hear from James. What kind of 3D printing or additive manufacturing projects do you have in the works? Can you talk about anything? Do we have any cool customers' names you want to drop again?
In terms of 3D printing, I think for us, it's in terms of projects, I think it's more of a use case. We have a lot of situations where we have customers that have their production lines where they didn't really see a fit for, maybe didn't see 3D printing being the solution of supporting their production line. And now we have a lot of parts that are out of spec, and we have major businesses, like, if I want to name drop, Bridgestone would be one that has bought multiple units. They have a production line that has some equipment there that has parts that are outdated, and they use our continuous fiber printers to support their production line. And so that's been a great success story for them because they're running absolutely nonstop, and it's been a great support for them. So I think in terms of projects, I would say that's been a very good success for us.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing 3D printing or additive manufacturing, James?
I mean, I'm closing in on a decade at Solid Experts. And in terms of 3D printing, I started out in SolidWorks, and then I got the mandate for 3D printing in 2020. So when I guess you could say, the spaghetti sauce hit the fan, the world came a little bit upside down. It was, I think, an opportunity for the company. I think Alex and everyone collectively really saw an opportunity to grow 3D printing. I think we already had our hands in it, but we were a software company for a very long time. As you can hear, Alex, very old and backdated, but I think we already had our hands into 3D printing. It was kind of like an appetizer, but we were looking to expand. We saw an opportunity with the supply chains issues, the shortage of parts, and just people getting an appetite of being more self-sufficient based on all the collapse of certain distribution chains throughout the course of the pandemic. So, our customers started expanding their bandwidth in terms of what they want as a 3D printer. So we hit the ground running. We started looking at a portfolio to get together that could meet all the needs. And so, what I do on a day-to-day essentially is just hear their stories. Sometimes it starts out with a specific project or a part, and it ends up we're talking about, instead of engineering problems, we're talking about production problems or tooling problems, or maybe another end use application.
Everything's related.
Or maybe we say, 3D printing might not be the solution for you, but you know what? Do you guys scan? Do you reverse engineer? How are you guys doing it? Are you taking measurements by hand? Maybe you can do it by 3D scanning. And we have solutions as well for our customers that maybe already have a 3D scanner, but they want to scale their reverse engineering capabilities through SolidWorks, or we have those tools as well. So we just sit down, have a conversation, and just align them in the right direction, essentially. I could be a general practitioner, a GP, and I got my specialists that come in and kind of dive deeper with our customers when needed.
Yeah. So I'd say it's the same for everything that we do. We have specialists for it.
Exactly.
Whether it's software or hardware, we've got somebody here that can help you out, basically.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the race cars then. Now that we're on the topic of 3D printers and using end-use parts or creating end-use parts from those 3D printers, I'll give a little bit of an introduction. So Solid Experts and Mechanica sponsor a racing series called the Super Production Challenge. Check it out on YouTube if you haven't already. And we actually 3D print some of our own parts and put them on the race cars. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, I've always been a big advocate of we use what we sell and we sell what we use. So in that context, we needed, we're running Nissan 370Zs. This is now our 5th year running these cars. As cars age, and as we run them, we find weaknesses, right? Things that need to be improved or overhauled and so on. Basically, every 24 hours of driving a race car is equivalent to putting 100,000 miles on a street car. So the amount of torture that we do to these vehicles, they basically require much more service, much more maintenance. And then when we find things that go bad, let's find out why they go bad. Simple example, the power steering unit on that car, after the 2nd season, they started going bad. Now, as a race car driver, when I want to turn, I want to make sure it turns. Right? And I don't want to suddenly say, oh, damn, what's wrong? It's so much harder to turn. And the next corner, it's really easy. So the driver can't anticipate what's going on, which makes it frustrating as heck when you're sitting behind the steering wheel. The cars came with an oil cooler, right, to cool this power steering. It's not big enough. So we put in aftermarket oil coolers. Okay, that works, but how do you cool them? Well, we made a ducting system. And one of the really, really cool pieces, one of my lead engineers who works on these machines every day said, we're going to make this, but how do we make a flexible hose go attached to that to an air intake? So we could design an air intake. That was easy enough. We could 3D scanning the front of the car to design how to fit it in there. But how do we attach the flexible hose? And we embedded magnets into the 3D printed part so that the parts it's a close fit, but the magnet holds everything together. Right? So unless you crash the car, Mike, it'll stick together.
So James, you said you've been here for almost a decade. Can you tell us a bit about how additive manufacturing has changed throughout the years and how that's affected the way you approach, different client meetings and things like that?
Yeah, there's definitely been an evolution. I think we touched a bit of base on it in terms of the history of 3D printing, in terms of, we've had 40 years at the origins. It was prototyping. And over the years, the output of 3D printing has really scaled in terms of quality, in terms of volume, in terms of material capabilities, catering to all kinds of different industries, such as aerospace, medical device companies, dental, jewelry. So you have biocompatible materials, you have metal materials, powder. So, I mean, there's been a real vast evolution, and that's where we kind of came in and started getting our hands a little wet in the different types of technologies of 3D printing to better serve our customers. And so the evolution I've seen since I've started this role 5 years ago, there's been a mass influx of a lot of 3D printing companies that have come into this space. And there's been some disruption as well with certain technologies, but I think the positive that comes out of this is that, because there is a lot of noise, and for the consumer and even as a reseller, aligning ourselves with a partnership, not knowing in what direction, because there's so many new companies opening each week, each month. There's always some new buzz. But I think what it's done, it's democratized 3D printing in the sense where people traditionally didn't have maybe necessarily access to the industrial equipment. Now they can get a pretty relatively decent printer and get out and make some parts, start creating products, providing services, and getting their name out there. And then that's when they start expanding on their capabilities, whether it's materials, whether it's they want to scale it faster, whether they want to go into different verticals and serve different types of customers with different material capabilities. And I think that's where Solid Expert then comes in and takes that next step with these companies that want to scale to the next level. And the same thing, we have other customers where they've been in business for a while, but they didn't really identify a need for 3D printing. They didn't feel that the volume justified the investment. However, they hire a designer, a young designer that comes in and he's got a 3D printer sitting at home because it's accessible. And next thing you know, he starts 3D printing parts for the company. He's like, hey, you could 3D print this bracket here and do that. Next thing you know, he's got his printer running. The boss like, wait a minute, man, I think maybe it's time we start getting a printer. And that's where Solid Experts come in. So this, I guess, disruption and a lot of noise has also been complementary to what we do, because sometimes you're a little uneasy of the unknown. You don't know where you stand, and also who do we align with in terms of partnerships. But that's been the positive. Right now, there's with this mass influx, there's also been kind of a cleansing that's been going on, a consolidation in the industry. So you're seeing a lot of acquisitions now, companies that are buying out companies, and you're seeing also good companies that just can't compete. There's just too many competitors out there, and obviously there's going to be winners and losers. But essentially, I think that's where the space is at right now, and I think we've been pretty non-reactive to the noise. So we're kind of watching. We want to be early adopters, but we don't want to get in too early, because sometimes you get your teeth kicked in when you get in too early. So we want to align ourselves. So we're keeping our eye out, and there's some interesting stuff out there, but I think that's the space is heading in the right direction. It's kind of like the dot-com boom when you got Google, like it survives from it, Amazon, and now we're starting to see some of the major players filter out the noise and kind of emerge as the winners of this race, So that's the next 5 years you'll probably see that.
So I've got a bit of a follow-up question then. How do you go about identifying the winners versus the losers, let's say? So what makes a good partner in terms of 3D printing brands? What are we looking for in terms of people to work with?
Oh,
or
that's
3D
that's
printers to
that's a
sell?
good one. I know Alex and I have had a lot of conversations about that. It's definitely, there's a lot of variables involved in a good partner. I mean, obviously you got to do your due diligence, but I mean, you're looking at reliability. You're looking at an offering that's unique, that provides value for our customers. That's what we're really looking at. What can be accessible to our customers, and also even on a logistics point of view, does it make sense for us to do, even though the technology might be unique, supporting the customer after, the accessibility to the consumables. And also there are cool brands out there, but at the same time, are they going to be around in 5 years? We don't have a crystal ball, but it's those variables as well. And at the same time, it's just, most importantly, you can do as much due diligence as you want, but it's also just experience and just diving into the deep end, essentially. Because I look at my evolution in the last 5 years in this space, and the thing is, you look at my first years looking at shopping for partners. You look at specs, and we're all geeking out, and we're looking at the size, the speed, how many materials.
Oh, you can print so fast with
And
this
we
one.
kind of neglect all the other stuff. And so we've grown as well. We've done our 10,000 hours now. So today versus 5 years ago, it's like we get solicited probably on a monthly basis from manufacturers to sell their product. And spec-wise, very appealing. Some of the applications, interesting. The price point, I already think of 10, I have a handful of customers I could call tomorrow and probably buy one. But today, it's like, after what we've been through, I got to ask myself, I already have a sense of what the kinks are going to be and what's my relationship going to be with my customer in a year from now. So we can increase our numbers by, X amount of percentage in the year by partnering up. But are we going to maintain a healthy relationship? And that's where our partnerships is what we're sizing up right now, is who's going to be the winners, who's got a good reputation. And, we've kind of had great success stories with our customers, but we've also been navigating the waters of the logistics side of it as well.
There was
Awesome.
There was a recent case where we had one of those vendors come to us. He says, this machine can do this and this record speed, and it's super fast. And James cut the guy at the knees and basically said, first of all, that's not possible.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, to somebody else, they would have eaten the dog food, right? But because we've been down the path enough times, we called them out, and within 10 seconds of the call, the guy realized, okay, I can't bullshit this guy.
Yeah.
Okay? And then it was knocked down to, well, actually, the machine is good to do this. Okay,
Yeah.
now we're being reasonable.
It's experience. We get caught up with the specs, and that, I think that translates into some of the challenges that our customers go through, because in a way we're customers as well. We're dealing with these manufacturers because we buy their machines and set them up, and we have mandates and projects that we're working on internally here that we have to deliver. And so we're going through this experience as well. And so when we went through that experience of the logistics and the specs, and now we know, it's like, okay, your marketing is saying this, but 500 millimeters per second, but what's the real number? Because based on geometries and surfaces, there's just certain materials as well that it's just not feasible. And sometimes, and that's for a consumer like ourselves, you get caught up in these things, but speed doesn't always equate to better. And sometimes slow and steady wins the race in 3D printing, to get the quality part, because the amount of times you're going to have to reset your machine, the damage that you might create on the print head through the vibrations of, because you're pushing it too hard, the shiftage, and then the failed prints that come with it, the beautiful plate of spaghetti that you see at the end of that when you come in the next day. These are all variables that we've been in the trenches, we've seen it. So I mean, we still get excited about new partners approaching us and manufacturers, but we've been down this road, so we've seen. So we see a trend with a lot of the printers out there that they have similar components, similar applications. So we kind of know
They're all buying their parts from Amazon.
yeah, something like that. But so we're trying to move forward and not be as reactive and be a little bit more strategic in who we're going to partner up with, and so that our customers, when they see us at our trade shows, that they shake our hand instead of walking right by us and saying like, hey, this is the guy that sold me a lemon. But so far, I mean, like I said, we've had great success stories with our customers. There's been challenges along the way. We won't, shy away from that. But I mean, in the end, we keep an open dialogue with them and work through the kinks. And I think with those 10,000 hours that we put in for future partnerships, I think we're hitting our stride in that sense.
Okay, so Alex, I worked on a lot of cool projects at my time here at Mechanica. Dazen in New York was a cool one. The skeletal structure next to the water, it was actually an art piece for the Whitney Museum of American Art. The OCAD Rosalie Sharp Pavilion Scrim in Toronto. Also in New York City was the John Paulson Center for NYU. We did the Proscenium Theater decorated panels there, and the big gym. There's a running track along the gym that we did the guardrail for. A lot of cool things, but can you tell us a bit more about some of the other ones we did?
I had kind of mentioned earlier before how things are happen as happenstance, right? I mean, how did we get into some of the projects that you mentioned? Is because of one of our customers that does ornamental metalwork. As a result of that, and a few of the projects we worked on were designed by Frank Gehry, a renowned architect who believed very strongly in CATIA. And so CATIA was required to basically do all these weird, shapes like the Guggenheim Museum and so on. We were not involved in that one, but we did the Art Gallery of Ontario, which was a project we did for them. But then the general contractor came to us and said, can you help the other people that are working on the different parts, because they're way behind schedule? So we started working with the guys that did all the glass and everything that held everything in place and all the staircases. And that one had a lot of structural wood in it. So all the structural wood, that was a really big project. For our American friends, really interesting one is the Air Force Memorial. So if you look up Air Force Memorial, you'll see these three large spirals, which are supposed to be like, you know, when you see the three jets kind of fly off and you see the way that happens. That structure, the tallest one of the three spires, is 280 feet tall, and it is entirely made of titanium. Now, okay, so we designed that, but we actually designed how to put it together and all the counterweights inside of it, because a structure that heavy, that tall, wind hitting it, so on, it has to be counterbalanced. Before your time, we worked on something called the Motor City Casino in Detroit, Michigan. So we've done a lot of work in the architectural arena, and as a result of that, it led us to saying, hey, Dassault, don't you have a product for this? And they've got a product called DraftSight, which is a 100% replacement for AutoCAD at about a third of the cost. So he said, great. Again, we use what we sell what we use, and it's really cool to be able to do design projects using the tools that we sell to customers. So we actually speak from experience, not just from, oh, I can peddle you this for $5 less type of thing.
Right. And can you tell us why it's important to use CATIA for architectural projects with, for example, Frank Gehry and things like that? What's the advantage there?
Well, I mean, specifically Frank Gehry, if you look at any of his designs, they are convoluted.
Very flowy.
There's not a straight line anywhere. Okay? If it was just a square building, okay, or you're doing your shed in the back, you don't need CATIA to do that. All right, but if you want your shed to look like the Guggenheim, you're going to need CATIA to do that, right? So it's basically anything that is structurally odd, difficult, a lot of angles, a lot of curves. A standard CAD product like AutoCAD is not going to cut it, and even some of that stuff, SolidWorks won't cut it either.
Right. You need to be able to calculate the unfold patterns for all those curved surfaces and things like that. Okay, so I think with that, we're going to wrap it up. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about what's coming next?
Sure, yeah. So actually in the beginning of August, we have another racing event coming up. This is the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. And Solid Experts is actually a sponsor of Super Production Challenge, which is racing there, as I mentioned before. So that's coming up at the beginning of August. We have other events coming up. If you're interested in other webinars or podcasts that are similar to this one, we can make sure to keep up with the format. I think we have a lot of specialists here with a lot of things to say, and we'd love to say them. Outside of that, we do have a training schedule on our website. So if you're looking to get trained in SolidWorks, CATIA, 3D Experience, make sure to do that with us and check out our training schedule. And lastly, obviously our socials. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, check us out. We're there, and we got cool content to show you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.